Okay, so in this video, what I really want to talk about is the performance that I've gotten. A little bit of performance. Okay, I'm not like, oh shit, I did all kinds of memory bandwidth tests and all that stuff. No, there's plenty of those out there. I'm just going to talk about my experience with the 4790K. This processor right here. This processor is absolutely amazing. Even though I think it's slightly overpriced at $350-$400. Actually, I think a fair price for this processor would probably be around $299. And you know something? You got AMD to blame for that. Quite honestly, I'm serious. AMD, it's AMD's fault this processor is probably $50, $60 more expensive than what it needs to be. So why did I switch from an FX 8320 to an Intel Core i7 processor? Well, the reason why I did is because I need more performance, and AMD just wasn't giving that to me. And then the next best thing from where I was, I had the FX 8320 overclocked to 4.4 gigahertz. It just wasn't enough. And the next step up, the highest I can climb would be buy an overclocked 5 gigahertz processor, which ran probably on 4 cores. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm thinking, or 50% sure, 60, 70%, let's take it up to 70%. I'm 70% sure that that 5 gigahertz AMD processor, the AMD FX 9570 or 90, I don't remember what it's called, probably runs on 4 cores at 5 gigahertz, and the other 4 is probably at 4.8 on that, and maybe it goes up from 4.7 to 4.9 or and on all 8 cores. I'm not sure, but either way, it's an overclocked processor, and I'm not gonna buy it. It's the same architecture. They've got nothing coming out, at least for a couple of years from now. AMD Zen. I'm probably gonna make a video on that. I'm not too excited for that, and I'm gonna get in the next video I make, or 2 down, I'm gonna actually explain why I'm not really that excited for the AMD Zen CPU. Yeah, let's just continue talking about the Core i7 4790K that I picked up. So yes, this processor removes all bottlenecks from my GTX 970. No bottleneck. It's 4.4 gigahertz turbo, but when I paired this processor to the Asus Hero 7 motherboard, it actually ran my processor at 4.4 gigahertz and all of the cores. That's actually pretty amazing. And I think Asus actually does this. Asus or Asus, as they want to call themselves. Guys, come on. I like Asus. Do you guys like Asus? Asus. Like, it's like he's a god. Oh my god. Even if I did reset the BIOS back to default, even if I did clear the CMOS, I guess the board detects the 4790K and decides, hey, let's put it to sync all cores by default and give it a little bit more voltage than the processor actually needs. Now, I actually undervolted the processor on its stock frequency. So at 4.4 gigahertz, I did try 1.150 volts, and it booted into Windows. It passed the stress test for an hour, 48 minutes, or 2 hours, I think it was. Ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, baby, rock solid. 1.15 volts at 4.4 gigahertz turbo, and that's on all 4 cores, guys. 1.150 volts on all 4 cores at 4.4 gigahertz. That is absolutely amazing to me. But then it crashed later on because it wasn't that stable either way. But it did pass OCCT. And I was like, shit, man, this shit is rock solid stable, until I actually played some games. 2 hours after playing Battlefield 4, my frame rates just tanked. It went from like 90 frames per second to 60 to 40 to 20 and 1 frame per second, until everything locks up except the mouse. The mouse wasn't locked up, I think, but all in a matter of like 10 seconds. And I'm like, oh man, that's very unfortunate. I increased it up to 1.168 volts. It's fine. I've been running this voltage for quite a while, and 1.168 for 4.4 gigahertz. And Asus actually put it up to 1.231 volts by default for the 4.4 gigahertz. And I'm guessing they're trying to really make sure that when they put that voltage, all of these processors will be able to handle that voltage. Just in case, because some people, you can actually do that and then all of a sudden it's not stable. If they put 1.168, the next Intel processor probably won't even be able to achieve that. It might need 1.2 or maybe 1.180 or 90 or 95. So to compensate for all of that, they overvolted it a little higher. So you can actually have to play around. If you want to get lower voltages, you can definitely do that. Unfortunately, to get 4.6, I would have needed to actually increase the voltage to 1.260 volts. To maintain stability, and 4.7 wants 1.31 volts. Anything lower than that and the system will crash. So and 4.7 seems to be the limitation for this processor for me personally. Of course I could probably put it higher. I could probably achieve 4.8 at 1.35 volts, but I'm not really willing to go that high. I'm really not yet, at least. Maybe later on when I loosen up. I just bought it. I'm still recovering from buying it. The first time you buy anything, a phone, a car, you don't want nobody touching your stuff. You know, you don't care. You don't want nobody touching it. You don't want nobody touching your phone, your car, anything like that. And then like after like a year, 5 months after, maybe you're like, oh, you want to use my phone? Here you go. And then you like, oh, you want my phone? You just take your phone, you just throw it across the room. You don't care. You let anybody drive your car. It's really not that close to you anymore like that. You get over it, you know, the hype that when you bought the product. Okay, performance is still pretty damn good. I'm getting around 10.1 points on it. And of course, this really depends on what you have running in Windows, like with your background. You know, if you have a lot of programs and tasks and stuff in the background, your points will go down. Okay, so pairing this processor with the motherboard and, you know, with the RAM at 2133, I'm actually able to achieve 10.1 points. Because AMD was only able to achieve maybe 7.48 around there. So that wasn't, it was okay. 130 bucks. Again, we're talking 130 versus, you know, 350 bucks. And if AMD really got off their ass and made something good, then we wouldn't be paying that kind of price for this processor. So let's talk about Battlefield results. I wasn't able to with the AMD processor again. Like I said, if I said it, it held back the 970. These GTX 970 was actually held back by the 8320, even 8350 at 4.4 gigahertz. It held it back. I wasn't able to get all the frames that I'm supposed to be getting, that I'm seeing other people get. Like, they're taking forever. Everyone is expecting AM4. What was it? Steamroller, which is now on the APU. They don't have anything else. And it just wasn't enough for Battlefield 4. I was getting like around 65, 70 frames per second, but I had to turn down the graphics. Leaving the textures and the texture filtering on Ultra, everything else had to be turned down to high, and then I had to turn the MSIA to 2x, okay, at 100% resolution scale at 1080p to achieve 65 to 70 frames per second. But when I pop this baby in, okay, I'm getting like 90 frames per second, 85 frames per second, everything on Ultra, 4x MSIA, and 130% resolution scale. Bruh, I don't know what else to say. How can someone not freak out over that? That's pretty good, but you know, you're paying the price for that. But either way, I know that the card, the graphics card is not going to be held back by the CPU anymore. And I think what's going to change all of this would be DirectX 12. I want to see how DirectX 12, you know, copes and you know, with the AMD CPU specifically. I'm talking about AMD CPU and DirectX 12. That's the only thing that can really help and save it, honestly. I think at that point it'll be worth it to see the Intel processor, the i7-4790K, or maybe what is it going to be, like a Skylake, maybe the 700K. When you pair that with maybe the FX 8320, maybe like a 90 bucks, and they're getting the same frame rate with the same card in DirectX 12 and let's say Battlefield 5. That is something I don't know if it's going to happen, but I feel like it might happen, and I think that's where AMD can really come back a little bit and say, yo dog, $90 for the FX 8-core processor, and you can get amazing, the same performance as a $350 processor. That is something they can actually do if DirectX 12 allows them to. I'm kind of hoping on that because it lowers the overhead for that, for the CPU. So I'm really hoping for that. I don't want AMD to die. I just don't. And the only reason why I updated to the Intel I was going to upgrade anyway, I think I stated previously, is because I've had AMD forever. Forever. Like Athlon, awake all the way up. It's been forever, like since 2003, and it's time. I have to switch over to really get to know the hardware. I needed to know how Intel operates, how It thinks how the motherboard layout is, well, not the motherboard layout, but the BIOS and all the multitude. There's so many options for Intel when it comes to overclocking. There's a lot of things you probably don't need to touch, but it's nice to see all of those in there, especially for extreme overclocking. All of that is really nice to see, and and a more really advanced architecture overall to really have this. Honestly, I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't know if I'll go back to AMD. I just don't know. Like I said, I know they got the AMD Zen coming out, supposedly 16 cores. I don't really believe too much in it. I'm gonna make another video trying to maybe explain why, and I have some analogies as to what it might be. I baffled on long enough. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. If you do have any questions, comments, concerns, maybe you think I'm running wrong in some areas, it's YouTube. Hit me up in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. If I'm wrong, that's fine. We're having a conversation. This is what we're doing right now. We're conversating. When you talk back to me, I will talk back to you. So leave a comment below, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Let's go play some Battlefield.